here real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's episode 204 of your favorite podcast, Keepin' It Rio. And I am beyond excited for today's guest. As y'all know, I've had people from all over the world, diverse backgrounds. I've had you name it. And I've actually done a couple food review shows in the past, but none quite like the one we're going to have today. I am extremely excited to welcome my guest, who was a referral from my good friend Jay Bradley at the Roof Nuts. If you're in the roofing industry and you're not using the Roof Nuts, you need to do that. And Jay is not paying me to say that, so I appreciate him, and it is an absolute honor to welcome his friend, my friend, your friend, everybody's friend of the show, Mr. Stafford Shurden. Stafford, welcome to Keepin' It Rio, my friend. How are you doing this evening?
Chuck, I'm doing better than I deserve, and I'm excited to hear what you can tell me about gas station food down in your neck of the woods, although I've been down there a little bit.
Okay. Well, mine is a national register. I've been all over the country with gas station food, so not just Texas. And I'll be honest, I don't think Texas has the best gas station food. And after watching some of your stuff, I really truly believe that that's the case now. So let's kick off this episode, because I think we're going to have a lot of fun and a lot of good positive energy here. We're going to solve some of the questions that mankind has been asking forever. And let's just kind of start off with this, my friend.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just run from there.
So I grew up on a cotton farm in Drew, Mississippi, which is home of Archie Manning. Y'all should know about Arch. I'm
an Ohio State fan, so I do know about Arch. Really? And I will say this. I went to his first start ever at Texas Longhorn Stadium this past season. So I am I can't say that on my podcast, but I went to a Longhorns game. I don't want to say I'm a closet fan because my Ohio State friends will beat me up if I do that. But yes, very familiar. And I actually met Archie Manning one time.
He is every bit the gentleman you think he is. But that's my hometown where he's from, and grew up on a cotton farm. It's just like you think it is, chopping cotton, all that. This will be my 30th crop farming for myself since college. So that doesn't count growing up on the farm and all of that, but I'm about to plant my 30th crop. So farming is really what my background is. In about 2002, I bought a building in downtown Drew. I got really involved in revitalization. You'll appreciate this. I put a metal roof on this building. I had no idea what I was doing, learning, as I went. And I had some help. It wasn't just me. But renovated the building myself and decided to put a restaurant in it. So in 2005, I opened up a restaurant. So now we're 20 years in the restaurant business. And somewhere in the middle of that, I was justice court judge in Sunflower County for about 14 years. And when I retired from that in 2019, I said, now I can do a little more social. And that's when the review started. And so it's kind of like I wanted to review food, but I really want to review fried chicken because we have really great fried chicken. In fact, we're in the running for best fried chicken in the state of Mississippi right now. Oh. And all the places I could think of were gas stations. And I was like, well, that really is a thing in Mississippi. And come to find out, there are great gas station food places all over the South, especially. So this thing just kind of ballooned really fast into where, of all the cool stuff I've done, 30 years of farming, a decade and a half of being justice court judge and all that, 20 years in restaurant business, everybody knows me as the gas station review guy.
Not a bad thing to be known for. I'm not going to lie. I think that that's a title that is earned over many years. I'll tell you this.
Go
ahead, my
really
friend.
Crazy. No, it's crazy. It's just wild.
It is. And I'll tell you this, we have quite a bit in common because as I was growing up as a young man, my parents owned a market and they had a deli there. And I have done some culinary wizardry myself over the years. Nice. I worked in a restaurant that may potentially fit the bill as a gas station restaurant, which was an airport diner in Columbus, Ohio at the Ohio State University Don Scott Field. Since you have to fuel your planes there, I'm going to count that as a gas station as well. And I have really cooked up some masterful dishes over the course of the years. So I think I'm qualified to hang with you in this.
What kind of stuff were you cooking there?
Oh, it was like we specialized in breakfast foods. I was really great with the omelets and stuff like that. But my specialty has always been the grilled Reuben.
Oh,
And that's
nice.
not something that you get too much down here in Texas, but a grilled Reuben, I can look the camera in the eye and say, I don't think there's anybody on the face of the earth that can make a better grilled Reuben than Chuck. And if anybody wants to dispute that, I'm happy to have a cook-off with you at any time. But yeah, I did that, and I've traveled all over the country. I have eaten at some of the finest gas stations as well. And the reality of the matter is, I've never been able to find anybody that appreciated it as much as you do. So I believe we're going to have ourselves a great time comparing gas station food stories. And yeah, it's going to be
Well,
awesome.
there actually are a few of us. So there's a guy down in Louisiana, a good friend of mine named Al Abear. It's not Herbert, it's spelled Herbert, but you get down there in South Louisiana,
Absolutely.
Abear.
Like
And
Bobby.
then he calls himself the gas station gourmet, and he actually writes for the National Association of Convenience Stores. And then there's a lady named Kate Medley who just published a book. It's sitting, well, you can't see it in the camera, but it's sitting right behind me, called Thanks, Please Come Again. And it's a photography book about gas station food in the South. I highly recommend it. She and I talked a lot when she was on that journey, and she's got some really incredible photographs. And this is specifically kind of the Mid-South and Southeast United States. It's a really cool book. So there are a few of us. It's not just me, but it's funny because I'm the one that I go around and speak about it. I spoke in Vegas this year at the National Association of Convenience Stores and taught a master class on menu development. And it's weird how, I don't know, I keep using that word weird, man, because you just don't know where your life's going to take you. But it's weird how I'm actually writing a book now called Meat and Three, which is a big thing in the South. Is you go in these places and you get the choice of one protein and three sides or two sides in a dessert or something like that, which is what our restaurant does. And that's what most of these gas stations that I really love are blue plate specials. A lot of people call them that, lunch specials, Meat and Three. So I'm actually writing a book called Meat and Three right now.
There you go. Another author. You're going to be the 21st author I've had on my podcast. I can appreciate that. I will definitely be buying that book because it's something I want to pursue later on in life as well. And my goal is to find the greatest gas station food in the world and then tell people about it. So we've got a common goal when it comes to that for sure.
So let me ask you what you think of Buc-ee's. You're right there close. The biggest one used to be right there north of San Antonio. I actually went to that one some years ago.
And I like Buc-ee's, okay? Nothing against Buc-ee's. It's great. You go in, they've got the finest restrooms in the entire world.
They do that.
I have said before, I would eat off the floor of the restroom in Buc-ee's, and I say that without any shame. It's probably kind of disgusting, but that's how clean it at least appears to me. One thing I'll say about Buc-ee's is you can pretty much get anything you want there. They've got great breakfast. Their breakfast tacos are really good. My favorite thing at Buc-ee's, however, is the roast beef. And I don't know where they get these cows from, but their roast beef is like, it's on another level.
So I'm missing out on the roast beef because I hadn't had that yet.
Well, see, now you know. The next time you go to Buc-ee's, you got to try the roast beef. It's the best $13 you're ever going to spend, I can promise you. And it's great. But to me, Buc-ee's, though, is a little bit too mainstream. It's a little too, touristy. People know about it too much. Some of my favorite ones are the ones where I used to travel from Texas to Ohio for the holidays. And along the roads between Texas and Ohio, you can find some really unique places. And some of my favorites are those hole-in-the-wall gas stations, the dives that you go into and you think, I have to kind of turn a blind eye to some of the cleanliness requirements that most people would look at. And I've always said that just gives character to the food. And I really enjoy that. But Buc-ee's is good. It's just, it's like Disney World, really. Everybody wants to go to Buc-ee's. Everybody wants to eat there. I like the obscure places.
So I understand exactly what you mean about the cleanliness thing, because there should be a patina to a good gas station. It should look like people have been in there.
Indeed.
And that's what one of my favorite spots is, a place in Benton's, Mississippi called Barry's. and there are cobwebs in the ceilings of this place.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all these deer photos on the wall over there. You know what I mean? This is one of those places. Deer hanging on the wall. There's deer photos on the wall. All the local hunters putting their photo on there. And they're yellow. And you don't know whether they're yellow because they've been there a long time or because the grease from all these burgers they're cooking's flying around, sticking to it. But there's a patina to this. And that's one of the key hallmarks you look for. The other one is, working guys like us know where to eat. So you look for trucks with toolboxes and ladders and stuff like that, lineman trucks, things like that. If there's a bunch of those stacked out in front of a gas station, you should probably stop and check it out.
Indeed, those are telltale signs, and I utilize the same exact thought process. It's like if I see people that are like me that are going in there, I know that's the spot. I'd go there over a 5-star restaurant any day of the week, and I think that it's very crucial that we spread the word so that more people understand this, because a lot of people that I know would listen to what you just said and say, "Oh, patina, that's gross." But I totally get it, my friend. And I agree with you 100%. Cobwebs build character. And if there's something like that going on, you know that grill has been properly seasoned over the course of the years.
There's something to be said about that, man. And what you said about Buc-ee's is the way I did the Buc-ee's thing. It was good and all that. And if we're on a family trip, like you said, you need a break, you need a place to stop, stretch your legs a little bit. If there's a Buc-ee's close, that's where we're going more than likely.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I can hold it for at least an hour and a half just to make it to Buc-ee's for sure.
100%. But if I'm out looking for something special, the mom and pop places, the hole in walls like you're talking about, that nobody knows about, and I get a great satisfaction. I did one of my big reviews I did, and I just re-released it. A lot of the clips you see of mine and me re-releasing stuff, because I've got like 200 and something episodes. But we went to Joe's Kansas City Barbecue, which used to be called Oklahoma Joe's, and the two owners split up, and one of them is still open. Anyway, it's a gas station, and whether or not I said it was good, those guys are going to be fine. I mean, Anthony Bourdain's been there. Andrew Zimmerman's been there. They're big time. Buc-ee's is going to be fine no matter what I say. But when I go to Grandma's Corner in McCall Creek, Mississippi, population 9, and I think that's only during the daytime when a couple stray dollars come up.
Nice.
Their business changes when I come, man. It's like really kind of rewarding to go to a place, and then you get word back, oh, they had a big week. I went to a place outside of Biloxi, Mississippi once, and had the roast beef sandwich, like a New Orleans style roast beef po' boy, right? Mm-hmm. With gravy and all that. I mean, it's dripping down my chin, dude. It was the real deal. And I gave it a really high score. And I got word back from them that I needed to quit putting those videos out because they were running out of roast beef every day, which was tongue in cheek. They were just kidding. They were very appreciative. But they were like, it just blew up and went through the roof. That was one that actually got picked up by Yahoo News. So you can imagine how many people saw that. But it is fun to, this is just a little place out on a 2-lane highway that nobody that's not from there knew about it. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot of fun.
That is. I think of one in particular, okay? And this has probably been maybe 7 or 8 years ago at this point. But I was driving from Columbus, Ohio, back to, at that time, I lived in College Station, Texas. And it's about a 20-hour drive. So I don't always time it right as far as gas goes. And I get to the point where I'm just making a contest out of it. I'm going to get as many miles per gallon out of my car. I'm going to see how far I can stretch a tank of gas. Yeah. But there are some stretches of highway where there's not a whole lot of options as far as places to stop and fill up. And this one time I timed it out just about right that I ended up in Bucksnort, Tennessee. And Bucksnort, Tennessee is similar to what you're saying. It's not a very large metropolis, maybe 15 or 20 people live in Bucksnort. And there was a Sunoco station. I hope it's still there because this place was amazing. I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't even hungry, but I was just going to go get some gas. I'm going in to use the restroom. And there it was, the counter. And it had that old school menu where they take the little letters and they could pop them in there, to change the prices and stuff. Oh, the red and the blue are mixed up. The capital letters and the small letters.
Be good right there.
Exactly. Right. So the thing that catches my eye was that this was the home of the bologna burger. And I don't know if you're familiar with bologna burgers, but bologna burgers are an amazing thing, right? And it's basically a thick piece of bologna that's cooked like a hamburger. They put it on a bun with some mustard, pickles, and onions. And if you want, you can really, go big and get cheese on it.
So it's not bologna and a hamburger patty. It's just a big, thick slice of bologna.
It's just a big, thick slice of bologna.
And
it's
we just
cooked
call that
up
a
on
bologna
both
sandwich
sides.
in Mississippi.
Well, yes. And I get that. Over in Bucksnort, it was a bologna burger. It's a delicacy of Bucksnort.
How things tweak a little bit from region to region?
Definitely. So I get a couple of these bologna burgers and I hit the road, and I'm telling you what, I get about maybe 20 minutes down the road and I'm thinking, man, I want to go back and get like 10 more of these and take them home with me. I didn't do it, but every year for the next 2 or 3 years when I do it, I made sure, even if my tank was on 3/4, I got to stop and fill up at this place because I'm going to get bologna burgers. And I made it a holiday tradition for about 3 or 4 years there. Bucksnort, Tennessee, there is a Sunoco station. I didn't think of the name of it because I really at that time didn't ever guess that I would be doing a podcast where we're talking about gas station food. But if that place is still in Bucksnort and anybody that's watching this happens to pass through, you got to stop because it is well worth it. The atmosphere, the food was second to none. So Bucksnort, Tennessee is probably my favorite gas station food of all time.
Man, I've got so many good ones. I like to think of it regionally. South Louisiana is right up there in the tops, man. They've got the crazy thing, and the reason I say that, the food's the same everywhere. If you go in Southeast or South Louisiana, Acadiana, hit Lafayette, go down, 10, a little bit over, a little bit south, because you can go Lafayette straight south on what they call Chef's Highway. Mm-hmm. The food down there is amazing. Everything's the same, though. You get at every gas station, and they all kind of run this same schedule of meat and three or blue plates, or they have boudin and cracklins. And when you get a cracklin, it's not a chicharron. It's not a crackling like what we have in Mississippi. They're these huge things of pork bellies that they cube up and they fry for like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And every store has them. They all use a little bit of different seasoning. They all kind of got their own thing going on. It doesn't matter where you stop. It's good. It is the craziest thing. You stop at any gas station in South Louisiana, and the food is going to be spot on. And then you go, my next favorite, probably like south of I-10 in Mississippi. And it's all seafood. There's a lot of seafood in South Louisiana, too, at these gas stations. But it's all shrimp po' boys. It's really New Orleans-style food. And they have a thing in Biloxi, Mississippi that you don't hear of anywhere else. They press their po' boys like a panini sandwich or like a Cuban.
That's
so
brilliant.
You get pressed po' boys, and they just stuff them with those Gulf shrimp that are coming into Biloxi. And a lot of shrimp come into Biloxi, Mississippi. They used to call that Cannery Row. That's how Biloxi kind of started. And all these shrimp boats are coming in. You can go right out on the docks at 5 o'clock in the morning and buy shrimp. And all these gas stations serving fresh Gulf shrimp right out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's crazy. And so that's kind of my second. But it's, I think of it in regions like that. Like you get up to Tennessee, you've got a lot more of the kind of stuff you were talking about, barbecue, that kind of thing. And then like where I am in Mississippi, it's all fried chicken. Like every gas station you stop at in the Mississippi Delta has some of the best fried chicken you're ever going to eat anywhere. It's like for real fried chicken.
Yeah,
I see you licking your lips, dude.
You can't go wrong with that. I was going to ask you about seafood, okay? Because I'm in Texas, right? And when I tell people that I know of places where you can get some good seafood at gas stations in Texas, they look at me like, what's wrong with you, man? You're crazy. But I will say this. I know a place in Texas where the best fried shrimp that I ever had is in a gas station in Carlos, Texas, which is like, it's a Valero station. I don't even know if it's still there, but I'd go in there and I'd get the shrimp special every time. And I only got sick twice. So it was pretty reasonable. And I was willing to accept that risk going in. But you talk about fresh seafood. My gosh, this is something I've never experienced in my life as far as stopping at a place along the way and getting actual, real, true, fresh seafood. And now you got me hungry. So that's pretty amazing.
You hit South Mississippi, and one of the strange things that's happened over the years shrimping is a tough business. I mean, a lot of guys that grew up around shrimp boats said, I'm going to medical school or law school. I'm not doing this the rest of my life. So as these guys have retired, Vietnamese fishermen have come and taken most of these businesses. And they have done really, really well at it. And some of them have bought gas stations. So you have Vietnamese-owned gas stations, Vietnamese-owned shrimp boats. So they're serving the shrimp they caught, and they're cooking it the way we cook it. But they also have, some of them have Vietnamese food. So there's this real crazy blending of cultures in South Mississippi that makes that really Gulf Coast region. Because I'm 2 hours south of Memphis. It's a long way from Memphis to Gulfport or Biloxi. And the culture's different. People don't realize that. I mean, everybody knows that Texas is a big state with regional differences. But even Mississippi, man, it's like the Mississippi Delta is nothing like anywhere else on the face of the earth. And then you've got the Gulf Coast, that's kind of their own little thing. And you've got the coastal plains. You get up northeast Mississippi, really you're in Appalachia now. And so you got all these different cultures just right here in Mississippi. But I got a question for you, because when I came to Texas to film, what I was really looking for was great Texas barbecue at a gas station. And it was hard to find it at a gas station. Great Texas barbecue everywhere. But I had a hard time finding it at a gas station. So if you or any of your listeners know, please hit me up, man, because I'm coming back. And I want some Texas barbecue, like the real deal. Y'all know what I mean by Texas barbecue. Because we're pork in Mississippi. You guys are beef.
Yep.
We're all about the pork.
Indeed. We are all about the beef here in Texas. And to be honest,
too, man, it's so good.
I haven't found a favorite gas station barbecue place. I do have a couple little hole in the wall spots along the way, though. And I did want to ask you this. Are your reviews completely confined strictly to gas stations, or are you willing to deviate a little bit to like a middle of the town type diner, a little, Edge General Store in Edge, Texas is a tiny one-room little restaurant, best hamburgers on the face of the earth. I've got some friends in Crandall, Texas that own a diner called Hot Rods, and same thing. You drive through and it's like, wow, look at this. There's a little restaurant. You go in there. It's got a great theme. The food, no matter what you get on the menu, is absolutely amazing. So have you ever deviated off of gas stations, or is this just strictly tailgate gas station review, period?
So I try to stick with the program. And I had a theory when I started that I think was probably correct, that it's hard to boil the ocean. So there are we're talking about 6 years ago when I started this, but there are so many people doing it now. I mean, and I got a lot of creators that are friends of mine, and they do the restaurant. The great thing about restaurants is I could just stay in a 100-mile radius of home and never run out of content.
Yep.
So I would never make it to Texas if I was just doing restaurants, or if I opened it up to all kind of stuff. And I thought about it because I get requests all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to San Antonio. Give me some suggestions. And people will inevitably, I'll get the comments online. I know it's not a gas station, but, because they all have that favorite spot. But it's really, I didn't realize when I started how many great gas station restaurants would be. I've been all the way to Key West, Florida, and of course down to San Antonio where you are. And one of the gas stations supposedly has good barbecues, Rudy's, and that's not far from you.
Now, Rudy's is actually really good.
I heard that. I did not make it there. I went to trying to think where I went to West Texas, the town of West Texas, which is a little north of Waco.
Yep.
And did the whole, and I always get in trouble for saying kolache wrong.
I say it that way too. And that's how we say it here. So.
Yeah. Well, you got Slovakics on one side of the highway and Czech style on the other. So I did both of those. That was a lot of fun. So Crockett, Texas. I did have some good barbecue in Crockett, Texas, but it was more like what we do in Mississippi. It wasn't really beef so much. It was a lot of pork. But so I did spend a little time in Texas, man. I love Texas. It's a cool place.
I do too. And I'll tell you this, if you ever come back through Texas, I will give you a couple spots. They're not here in San Antonio, but over near College Station, I lived for 10 years.
Yeah. I'd love to have something there.
Yes. So out on Highway 30, I used to work at a roofing company there, and I lived in a little mobile home beside the office that I was at. And I'd lived there for almost a decade. And I would take my drone and I'd just fly my drone around because I lived out in the middle of nowhere. Well, one day I spot this building going up, and it's a gas station called Coal Stop. And it is right on the edge of College Station and Carlos, Texas. And I started going there, and I recognized they've got a nice little eatery going on here. I let it go for a couple months before I tried it because, like we mentioned before, I wanted it to be seasoned properly.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to taste like brand new equipment. Needed to kind of let it do a couple cycles. Well, one day I decided I'm going to go eat breakfast over here, and I'm usually good for like a bacon, egg, and cheese or whatever. Well, I walk up to the counter, and this nice lady is cooking up this thing, and it was like pulled chicken with some kind of cream sauce, and it had corn in it, and it had some peppers, and it was real cheesy looking. And I said, you know what? Let me try that out.
Yeah.
And I fell in love, right? I would literally drive from San Antonio to College Station just so I could eat at this Coal Stop and just get that specific thing. And it got to the point where they'd make it just for me. And she'd say, you know, you want the chicken? And she'd pull it out and have it ready to go.
So
and I definitely recommend that. And then there's another place in I don't even know the name of the little town, but it's another little gas station. You go in there, and they've got, like you said, it's a 1 and 3 type deal. You get whatever you've got. I would always get the fish. I'm a big fish fan. I love fried fish. But they would have green beans, mashed potatoes. They would sometimes have dressing like Thanksgiving style. And you could go in there and get this plate that would probably feed 2 or 3 people comfortably. And it'd cost you like $6. And this is in modern times. You could go there today and probably get $6 worth of food that would fill you up for the entire day. And I'll have to get the name of that, and I'll get back to you. But College Station, Texas has some really, really great, there's a Rudy's there, really great gas station eateries. Since I've been in San Antonio, I've kind of focused more on the restaurants, but I'm going to start looking for some gas stations so I can get you some recommendations down here.
So I saw years ago, Bourdain was at a gas station somewhere on the border with Mexico, and it was breakfast tacos. And it was like best taco I've ever eaten, and it was at a gas station. But I've somewhere lost that video. I don't know the name of it. If you know, or if anybody knows, I'd love to go there and check that out. But I know there's got to be some great taquerias and gas stations down there too.
Oh my gosh, it's insane. And it's like a Texas way, especially here in San Antonio. I don't go to them as much as I should. I've been trying to watch my weight a little bit. Maybe I need to watch my weight go back up just a tad so I can get you a little bit of recommendations for your next time down here. But plenty of opportunities for that. And I plan on focusing a little bit more attention on that in the coming weeks and months and years, so that if you ever do announce a tour of Texas, I'll be able to give you some good stuff so you can go and say, hey, you know what, that guy Chuck knows what's going on. So I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about the gas station tailgate review that you do. This obviously is a pretty cool idea. Like you said, there's over 200 episodes of it. You've been doing it for years now. This just randomly comes up in your mind one day, or what was the thought process behind doing this the first time?
So as we were, and I say we because I think about the restaurant, you know, it started out, we were using social media really heavy in the restaurant business. And at one point I owned 2 restaurants. I just own 1 now. But social media was a big part of what we were doing. And a lot of the people that I work with, they don't really want to be on camera. So I found myself on camera a lot. But I was kind of hamstrung a little bit because when I was judge, we go by the code of judicial conduct. So I felt funny sometimes being on camera, and some of what I may or may not want to talk about, I was like, is that kind of past the test of me being an elected official and being a judge? And so when I decided not to run in 2019, we actually started thinking ahead of time. Okay, so I can take the brakes off now. I got really good with social. I mean, it became a huge marketing thing for me. It's free. If you're willing to put the time into it, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like if you're not good at social, just pay somebody to do your ads for you. But I was kind of in a financial pinch at the time, so I was really wanting to try to make everything I could out of social. And we thought about the idea of me going around and reviewing fried chicken as a comparison to ours. And my page, which had been for me running for judge, that's how my Facebook page started. I said, well, I've already got a pretty big following we'll just use that as a funnel over to our normal restaurant page, which is Stafford's Market in Delhi. And we made a list of fried chicken places and that I thought would pass that test of being really good. And all of them were gas stations but one, and that was Gus's in Memphis.
Oh, I know about
and
Gus's.
I think they actually have they have a Gus's in a couple of them in Texas. Actually, I know that
there's one in San Antonio. Absolutely,
is it? I think it's San Antonio and
Austin.
That's it, Austin. But they started in Memphis, Tennessee, and so I was like, well, maybe I should just be doing gas station food. And then all of a sudden, this thing becomes a gas station food idea. So January 2020, my daughter and I, my youngest daughter, we're driving to the county seat of Sunflower County to buy a car tag. And we're having a conversation about fried chicken livers. I swear this is the truth. And she goes, well, you know, Dad, I've never had fried chicken livers. And I'm going, I'm the Mississippi Delta. Have I failed as a parent? My daughter, who's at the time, she would have been about 11 or 12. I was like, she's never had fried chicken livers. So we make a little detour to Double Quick, which is a locally owned chain. Friends of mine own it. This was Double Quick #1. And I said, you know what? Let's film it. We've been talking about doing this. Let's just film it. Dude, I've got on like a torn up sweatshirt. And I mean, my hair wasn't going, you know, I wasn't really prepared to be on camera. But in just this really weird, it was both, I told somebody the other day, it was both hubris and serendipity to put a camera on me and let the tailgate down and talk about fried chicken livers. And a lot of my friends were calling me after I put that first review out, and they said, dude, what the hell are you doing? You know? And I said, I don't know. Well, that review gets like, I mean, immediately out of the gate overnight, 10 or 15,000 views. And I went, oh, I've definitely, I may have hit a nerve because I didn't have that many people even following me. So I did another review and it got the same kind of response, did another and another and another. So about 3 weeks into this, I get a call from a radio show and they're like, we want you to come on and talk about these reviews you're doing. We're really interested in all of this and why gas station food. And I go on and they started interviewing me. I drove to Jackson to the state capitol. This place has like 7 radio stations all over the state. So I'm statewide right now. And she says, well, how long have you been doing this? About 3 years. And I said, 3 weeks. So that's how fast this thing took off, man. It just hit a nerve with people because there's actually a meme that's been around for years in Mississippi. And it says, in Mississippi, our gas station food is better than your state's restaurant food. So it's like kind of well known that in the state that we have great gas station food.
Gas station food is a very important thing, and I can understand why so many people immediately responded to it because much like myself, I've been thirsting for this kind of content. I've got 200 episodes to watch now, so I can understand, some of the different places that you've been. And if I start traveling, I know exactly where I need to go when I'm in certain towns now. And you, my friend, are doing the world a service by bringing us this information because if you weren't doing it, we would not have any idea about some of this stuff, and you're changing lives.
Well, I think about this a lot too. There's a couple of motivators that I didn't have when I started doing this tongue in cheek, right? I mean, like I didn't think it was going to become some kind of real deal, but the motivation is kind of been twofold. One is I realized I started hitting some of these places. These are the same kind of places I grew up with in Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta especially, that are no longer with us. Either just like the shrimp boats we talked about earlier, you had kids that grew up and go, I don't want to run a register at a store the rest of my life. I want to do something else. So some of these places have died out over and over and over again. And a lot of the places that I love the most, it's the last generation doing it. When those guys either retire or die or whatever, that store's gone forever. And they're in such small communities that, it can't be recreated what they're doing. And I think about my friend Billy Bassey over in Gunnison, Mississippi. Dude, you're going to walk in, all you can get is a sandwich there. But you're going to get to talk to Billy and hear all the history of Gunnison. And probably you and him are the only 2 people in there at lunch. And it's just one of those experiences that you go now, or maybe you don't ever get to go. And so it's it's like these little pieces of Americana that are literally withering on the vine. And, maybe by going there, I put a little more money in Billy's pocket. I don't know, but there's a lot of them. I talked about McCall Creek and Granny's Corner, and those are the places I love the most. And it became this kind of, people get excited when I go to the big places. Those get more views, but my heart is with those little mom and pop places that I know. There's a place close to me, and I've talked to the lady. She's like almost 80. And she said, when I die, this place will close because none of my kids have any interest in it. And it's not a profitable enough business that anybody would buy it, So that's a weird thing, I forget who said it. I think it was Wright Thompson, who's a sports writer for ESPN, said nostalgia root word is home and pain. And I was like, that's exactly what I feel when I go in these places, because it takes me immediately back to my childhood. And so you feel very at home, very comfortable, but there's this little hint of pain about it. You know what I mean? And so I've gotten really attached to some of these places, and some of them are gone. Been doing it 6 years. There's some of them that are gone now. Some of them didn't survive COVID. One of my favorite spots, he didn't survive COVID. It was in the middle of COVID when I went, actually. And he told me straight up, he was like, I don't know if I'll be here when you put the review out even. And he lasted about 6 more months and he was gone. But there's so many of these places are one way or the other are not going to be with us much longer. That's a weird feeling, man.
It is. And I'd never really thought of it like that, but you're spot on. You really have that hint of sadness as you're enjoying it. And you think, well, this might be a one and done for me. And I may never get to come back, and it may not exist the next time I'm through town. And, like you said, sometimes your reviews might actually be the difference between keeping the lights on for another month or two or having
100%.
a shutdown. And that's a wonderful thing. And that is, like I said, you're doing a service. You really are changing lives with this. Now, I want to ask you a question about how you find these places. Do you get a lot of people? I see you've got over 30,000 followers on Facebook. Lots of people are watching your stuff. How do you go about locating these places? Are they sending referrals? Do you just kind of drive around? Do you look at a map and just kind of put your finger somewhere and say, let's roll over here and see what we can find? What's the process to locating some of the fine gas station eateries in the United States?
Well, that's an evolution to a degree, because when I started, I knew all the great places within 60 or 70 miles of home. So that's what I did first, right? I mean, I could say, hey, I'm going to run over here for lunch, film a review, and I can be back home in no time, be back on the farm or whatever else is going on. So that's kind of how it started. As I started kind of knocking those local places out and expanding not only into further and further areas because I needed new places, but also people, it's exactly what you're thinking, man. That 30-something thousand people, if I'm going, man, I'll tell you a crazy one right here. So I put out that I was going to Nashville, Tennessee. And through this whole thing, I've met a guy named Ben Napier who has Hometown. And I know a lot of people, him and his wife, Erin, have Hometown, which is a show on HGTV. It's very similar to Chip and Joanna Gaines show that they had out of Waco. So it's a home makeover show. And he's kind of gotten to be really famous. And he texts me. He's got my number and he texts me. And he says, Chris Stapleton says you should go here in Franklin, Tennessee. One of my recommendations comes from Chris Stapleton, right? And I'm like, I got to go to that. I can't say no to that. And by the way, it was a BLT with 10 slices of bacon on it at a 100-year-old general store in Franklin, Tennessee. That was one of the coolest places, called the Davis Store. So I highly recommend it. Franklin is a cool place if you've never been there. But yeah, it comes from everywhere. So originally I would just take a review and I would go to it. And if it was good, I posted it. If it's bad, I posted it. So I was going to get content either way. During COVID, I kind of felt a little funny about all of that. I was like, people are struggling. I didn't really feel comfortable putting out negative reviews. So I quit doing the negative reviews. Hadn't done any since COVID. A lot of guys do. They're friends of mine. That's all cool. Just for me, it didn't work for me. So now I really try to do a due diligence on if you Chuck says go here, you and I know each other. I'm still going to look it up, see what they're doing, what are their hours, what days do they serve what. Their Facebook page is going to be a big piece of it. My friend Al Aber actually said, if you're not posting on your Facebook page daily, he's a writer. He's like, I'm not going to write about you because I'm not even going to call you. I mean, it's like not answering the telephone when somebody calls, not having a Facebook page these days or some type of social media. But I try to do due diligence. Up to this point, I try to go and them not know I'm coming. But, when you start driving 10 or 12 hours and you get there and you find out, oh, they are closed on Tuesday because they got to take their kid to the doctor or something, it kind of gets difficult to do that. So we've really been thinking about calling ahead and going, hey, I'm coming to review everybody says get your chicken and dumplings or whatever it is. And they go, well, we don't do that on Thursdays. Sometimes that doesn't come through in the language until I get there. And that's kind of a problem. So I've really been thinking about as this show has grown, maybe I do need to do it more like a real TV show where there's a call sheet. I'm going to be at a certain place at a certain time because it does cost a lot of money to put these shows together. Travel, spending the night in a hotel room now because I'm going so far from home. And then you go and you're planning on filming 3 places in a day usually to make your trip worth it. And then you get there and 2 of them, one of them's closed and the other one doesn't have the thing that you're supposed to be getting that day. Well, then you only have to film 1 place. So what I've been doing is getting about 6 places in a region. And if I have that problem, I've kind of got some backups, but it has been a problem. One place I've been 3 different times and they were closed every time. And you look on their Facebook page, it doesn't reflect that. So I finally just gave up on them, But it's mostly through Facebook or TikTok because I got about the same number of followers on TikTok too. And I'll just put out a call and say, man, I'm going to Waco. What's good? And people will tag their friends from Waco, So that's the beauty of social media is it's a two-way conversation.
Absolutely. And you never know who's watching. Like you say, I mean, you get stars that are sending you to places and it's like, hey,
isn't that crazy? I mean,
it's awesome.
Don't misunderstand. Chris Stapleton has no idea who I am. I don't want to sound like that, but I was like a friend of a friend. You once removed from Chris Stapleton. I think that's cool, man. And so I was on the way when he texted me and told me it was Chris Stapleton. I was like, dude, I'm actually almost there. And I'll tell you another crazy story about Ben Napier. So I'm there at that store. So Ben texts Mike from American Pickers, who also lives in Franklin. And Mike says, well, if he's there, he's got to go to this other store. It's like 5 miles down the road. And I walk in there and there's 2 ladies, older ladies. And they go, where are you from? And I said, Mississippi. And they said, do you know Ben Napier? That is our favorite TV show. And I said, you're never going to believe this. But Ben Napier is the one that told me to come here because Mike lives. I said, oh, yeah, we know Mike real well. He comes in all the time. So it's just funny how these little, what's that movie? 7 Times Removed from Kevin Bacon or something like that. It's really like how you and I connected. I don't even know if you know how I know Jay. And that might.
Well, I know that you both went to Mississippi State is really all I know.
So we did not know each other, and I'm older than Jay. And I didn't even know there was a bar called Cowbells that Jay owned because that's all after my time there. And I use a life coach, business coach in Nashville, Tennessee named Michael Burt. And I booked a flight with Michael to fly from Nashville to New Orleans. And I get on the plane, Jay's on there. And within about 5 minutes of he and I sitting on that plane talking, Coach Burt looks at us and goes, do you 2 know each other? And Jay, it's like that scene out of Step Brothers where they kind of look at each other and say, hey, man, did we just become best friends?
I love it.
I mean, I think Jay literally said that. Did we just become best friends? And so, like, that was only a couple of months ago. And I went to his roof camp. You'll like this too. So I went to Jay's roof camp. I know a lot of your roofing friends and folks that listen to podcasts know Jay. Go to his roof camp, and he's like, hey, man, I need you to do the DJing. I played 2 songs and crashed his computer. He's
nice.
Yeah, completely crashed it. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened, but you put me running electronics, it's not going to end well. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
and
a
you know what?
side.
I feel the same way about Jay. I met him the first time he and I ever spoke was on this podcast. And we talked for probably about an hour and a half. And before that episode was over, we had figured out how we were going to win the Daytona 500. We were going to solve all the problems in the roofing world. We had all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and just a magnetic guy. And like you say, you can't help but be drawn to that because his personality is just so likable. And I was actually scrolling through doing a little bit of research earlier, and it was back in December, early December, when you posted something about podcasts, and I had no idea. I didn't recall this at all, but he recommended Keeping It Rio a couple months ago. And I thought, well, there you go,
I don't
Jay. I
remember it either,
appreciate
dude.
you. Yeah, I appreciate that. He said, you guys will have a good time and Chuck will appreciate your content. And he couldn't be more right about that. So I definitely appreciate Jay Bradley. And like I said, if you're in roofing, you got to give Roof Nuts a try because this guy is authentic as it gets. And he just has a great personality. So thank you to Jay.
Well, I'll tell you this about Jay too. Jay wants to see his friends win. And it doesn't take much to become Jay's friend. And I mean that in the most complimentary way that I can. He loves everybody and he wants to see the people that are his friends win. And that's one of the coolest things. You don't run into people like that. So many people are out for themselves only. So, I'm not like Jay, I'll expect my check in the mail for saying that, but honest to goodness, it's the truth.
It is the truth. And you're right. Anybody that knows the man knows that. And I know that the roof camp is something he just came out with. I saw the crowd that he had in that building over there. And it was like, you know what? Good people get good things and good things happen to great people. And he's filling up rooms all over the country and just one of those guys. Like I said, we're going to win the Daytona 500 as car owners one day. And we've already got our driver, Jeremy Mayfield. We got the whole thing figured out. And I actually had Jeremy Mayfield on my podcast a couple weeks later, and I told him about this plan, and I feel like Jeremy's on board. We may not win the Daytona 500, but we're going to win something together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can assure you of that. So,
Keeping It Rio on one panel, and I can see Roof Nuts on another panel on that car for sure.
Absolutely. And my sponsor, roofer.com, will be on the hood. So we've got it pretty much covered. We know exactly how we're going to win and what we're going to do. And that was one of those unknown things that I had no idea going in, that he had been part of an ARCA team and he's a big race fan. I'm a big race fan. We shared stories about racing. And when we started the episode, I had no idea that was going to happen. So shout out to Jay Bradley for sure. One of the good guys in this world. And I'm honored to call him a friend. I'm honored to call you a friend as well. This has been
fun.
I'm having a blast. So I want to get back to the gas station food real quick because something that's on my mind about this is the rating system. And I want to know, what are the criteria that you look for when you're going to put together a program and you're going to rate a gas station food establishment? What are some of the things that you look for that go into your ratings? And I know you do a 1 to 10 and you can use decimal points. Yeah. So I think really that's pretty interesting.
Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so tell me a little bit about what you look for.
I'll tell you, this all started just seat of my pants. I don't have I don't go like a ranking criteria the way a barbecue judge would do barbecue or something like that. And it has as much to do if I give a place a high score, like in the 9s, which is the 90th percentile, right?
Yep.
If I give a place in the 9s, they make me feel some kind of way. That's the best way I can put it. Like the food can be great, but sometimes you get this weird feeling in the place that like Buc-ee's is a good example. The food's good, but it's not a mom and pop place. Those places are always going to get a higher rating from me if the food's good. So if it's a mom and pop place and it has that patina, not dirty, but the right kind of patina, if it makes me feel a kind of way, if I do get a little of that nostalgia, that's when you get the 9s. Now, occasionally I do run into a place that the food is just so impressive. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is NFA Burger, and me and you're going to say Atlanta. It's really Dunwoody. But NFA Burger in Atlanta, Georgia does nothing but smash burgers. And smash burgers are not for everybody. Some people like the big, thick ones on the grill, I like those griddled smash patties. And since I reviewed this place, I've gotten to know Billy Kramer that owns it. He does it to perfection. And I said, give me one line to describe your gas station food to everybody in the world. And he said, I would rather do one thing perfectly than a bunch of things imperfectly. So, I mean, you don't go there for anything else. He's got burgers and I think maybe some chicken strips and a hot dog. And that's kind of it. It's in a Chevron. And it's like the Soup Nazi on Seinfeld. You go in, you order, you get out of the way. You go outside and they'll come out and call your name and bring you your food at the picnic tables because it is lined around the block. Now, that's one of those places that there's nothing special about the building. There's nothing special about Dunwoody, Georgia, but the food was just so incredibly good that I gave it in the 9s. So the way I look at it, if it's in the 9s, that's one of those places you need to actively seek out. You know, if I give it in the 9s, it's like you're 2 hours from there, make the detour. If I give it in the 8s, it is really, really good food, but I'm not making a 2-hour detour for it. If it's in the 7s and you're passing through that town, it's a must stop if you're passing through. You know what I mean? Like I think of it in drive time. You start getting below a 7, you're not going to be mad at it. Like 6.5, you're not going to be mad about it. You're not going to feel like somebody stole your money. But, you know, you don't see many 6.5s. I usually pick pretty good places. Gets below that, I didn't even put it out. Like, that's like, okay, you people stole my money. I could have eaten a ham sandwich out of a lunchbox and it'd have been just as good, you know. Or just, I tell you what, anything less than 6.5 to me, that's kind of where fast food is. I tend to think of like a McDonald's burger is going to be like a 6 or something like that. So, you know, if it's below that, man, just go through the drive-through. But yeah, when you start getting up in those 9s, most of the places you see where I rate it that well is either just outstanding food or it's a place like Granny's Corner we were talking about where I just went in and went, man, this place is special because of the people that are in there. Look, man, I walked into this place. I have a theory on restaurants that you do like my friend Billy Kramer with NFA Burger. You choose one thing that you're better at than anybody else and you build a menu around that thing. You go into Granny's Corner, every rule that you can have about the restaurant business, location, terrible location, right? You know, size of the menu, they have this huge chalkboard that probably has 30 things on it. If you want a ribeye steak at lunch, they're going to cook you a ribeye steak. And she very happily tells me, she says, we're never out of anything on this menu. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And for whatever reason, it works. And I got a patty melt because that's what they told me to get. But, you know, you go there really because it's a cool place and those ladies are cool. And again, you know, those places are not going to be around forever.
Yeah. And I always felt this. If someone calls you sweetie or honey or sugar, that gets an extra, 0.5 just right off the bat because you don't get that at Buc-ee's. If someone calls you honey or sweetie at Buc-ee's, they're probably getting fired. And I think that is really that's one of those things that's unheralded about it. Like you say, it's the experience as much as it is the food. And Chuck, I think that you get to some of these places and that is a difference maker.
Did you see the review I did in Bay Springs, Mississippi? It was a Philly cheesesteak.
Where the lady told everybody that she loves them?
Yeah, everybody. She says everybody that came in that store, when they rang, she'd ring them over. She said, I love you, baby. I love you, baby. You have a good day, baby. I love you, baby. But it was, I love you, baby, to everybody that came in that store. So I put that review out and I say that she said that. And I mean, it just goes viral because of the lives that woman has touched. And most of the people that shared that on Facebook said, I go in there and she tells me that. I mean, like she has, I don't know if she knows this. She should now because they recognize me. This is one of those places that I came in there like, oh yeah, that's that guy that does the reviews. And so they recognized me. And at first I was like, did she just do that because she recognized me and they're trying to get a good review? But as I'm waiting on the food, dude, it was everybody. It wasn't just me. And I was like blown away. And all these lives that she touched, a lot of people get breakfast at these places. And that's one of the first people they're going to see as they're starting their day, man. And she has to have turned some days around. No doubt about it. But yeah, that right there, I mean, are they going to get a better score because of that? You daggum right they are. I mean, I'm going to give them some food reviewers want this letter like it's only about the food, but for me, it's the total experience.
I agree. And I think that that is the most important aspect of the whole thing. Like you said, you feel at home and you feel
100%.
appreciated. And it's not, well, she says to everybody that she loves them. You actually feel it and you believe that she actually does love everybody that she says that to. It's not just a line that she's saying because that's her thing. She's been saying that probably for the last 30 years to every person that she's made food for. And you can feel that it's sincere. And with that, you just have to say, hey, you know what? I like you. You're awesome. And this is the place I'm gonna tell my friends because we need to share the love and we need to make sure that these types of places are as successful as they can be because it is limited and we all recognize that. And that's the sad part of it is it's not going to go on forever. But as long as it's here, we've got an obligation, I feel, to tell people, hey, y'all need to go there. If it's a 2-hour drive, it's worth driving there. And, like you say, I think you're generous giving McDonald's a 6.
Yeah, maybe so.
It's pretty good.
I
when
don't
you get
ever eat there, dude.
No, me neither. I haven't eaten at McDonald's in years because there's so many other good places out there that we can go to. So let me ask you this. As you continue to evolve, you've been doing your show now for, like you said, almost 6 years. What is the plan? Is this something you're just going to keep doing? Is this something that's going to continue to get bigger? Are you looking maybe for a TV deal, something like that out of this at some point? What are you thinking as far as the gas station food review goes? What's this going to look like for you?
So I've really enjoyed doing the filming thing. And so there are several things going on in social media because I thought about the TV thing. So, and I don't talk a lot about this because none of this stuff ever came to fruition, but I talked to ESPN one time about doing something on game day on SEC Network, which would have been super cool, by the way, but it didn't ever work out. And then I've talked to a couple of production companies about a TV show. And so travel television is very expensive to make. It's about $125,000, $130,000 an episode to make a travel TV show. And so not a lot of that stuff's getting greenlit right now, but that could possibly happen. One thing I've never done is done any kind of sponsorships. And I partnered up with a guy, and one of the things we've been talking about is he's like, dude, I get about between all my social media somewhere around 1 million views a month, somewhere around that. And he's like, you should definitely be talking to sponsors. And so I'm actually trying to do a new show, which will just be about farming in 2025. It's going to be like this limited edition thing, a little different deal where it'll be a 20, 30-minute show. And I have a sponsor attached. I don't want to say because we hadn't exactly signed a deal yet, but I'll have a sponsor attached to that. And then we're also talking about doing a more in-depth show where I go back to some of these favorite places that you and I have been talking about today. And OARC General Store is a great one. OARC General Store is the oldest continuously operating store in the state of Arkansas. And they sell gas. And it's OARC, but it's up in the Ozark Mountains. And you go up there, your cell phone doesn't work. And they've got this big pavilion outside because everybody can't fit inside this thing. It's so busy. And it's like, again, population 50, 60, I don't know. And it is packed to the gills if it's a pretty day. People drive motorcycles up there. There's these big Corvette clubs that go through, and they all stop at OARC to eat. I would love to tell the story of the family that owns that rather than just about the food. Because that's, man, the culture behind some of these places. Can you, and this is the question my friend and I were talking about, can you tell a story about the culture of a place through the gas station food? And I think maybe you can. I mean, we've already talked about how there are some little differences, nuances between regions of the country. And for me to be in front of the camera and all that, I enjoy it. I scratch that itch, but I'd like to get some other people in front of the camera too. So that's something I hope I really get to do this year, and it'll be more of a long-term Facebook thing. But I'll still do the tailgate review. That's still some fun, and that's kind of the way I'll find those places, I hope. And maybe it grows into an actual, maybe you guys look up and see me on Travel Channel one day. I don't know.
Well, I
That'd be
hope
cool.
so, because I can tell people that guy was on my podcast. I've had famous people on my podcast now. That's going to be really cool.
I'll say I know you.
Yeah, right. I think that's going to be really cool. And I'm excited to see how this continues to evolve. And it's awesome to me that, this literally just started one day with you just saying, okay, let's just record this on the back of my tailgate. And now you're getting 1 million views a month, which that's pretty big time, my friend. There are TV programs that aren't getting 1 million views a month. So
Well,
I
that's
think
what
there's
my
an
friend told me.
opportunity.
He was like, one of my producer friends that like produces some pretty large TV shows you've heard of. He was like, honestly, you could probably make the same kind of money on YouTube that we would pay you to have a TV show. There are other benefits to having a television show. You know what I mean? Like there's other kind of deals you can make if you're that well known. I really believe that, I forget who said it, that success follows attention in today's world. I mean, like, you understand that. It's the reason, I'm sure it's one of the reasons you got a podcast. You love doing
Absolutely.
it. You're good at
Absolutely.
it. But yeah, you understand that, that it's just the world we live in. People have a special need in today's world to know who they're doing business with and to not feel like they're doing business with some big corporation. And us having our faces and voices out there is a really important thing. So yeah, it's definitely benefited me. I mean, I love that it's benefited these other things too, all these gas stations and other brand. But yeah, I mean, every day you go in my restaurant, I mean, dude, I live in a town of 2,000 people. And every day one of my friends was like, who's at that table over there? And I'm like, I have no idea. And they'll come up and be like, hey, can we take a picture with you? And that just weirds me out, man. It weirds me out completely.
It's pretty cool though.
Come for that. Yeah, it's fun. I didn't know. Here's the other thing you may not believe. I'm actually very shy. I love solitude. I like being on a John Deere tractor, plowing the field. That's really where I would rather be. When I ran for judge, that very quickly I understood that I couldn't be walking up to a door. I couldn't walk up, knock on Chuck's door and be real shy and go, hey, man, I'm running for justice court judge. I had to be that person, confident and, stand up straight, like your mama used to say. And so that's what I did. And I just kind of grew into that role as justice court judge. And now I'm giving speeches on a restaurant and stuff and marketing and stuff like that, which is probably, if it hadn't been for justice court judge, I probably wouldn't have never done that. I wouldn't have been as comfortable doing that.
Yeah. And that's the evolution. And, I'm the same way. I have a small roofing company, but I make videos like yours. I put them out there all the time. And just in the last couple of days, I've had people that have reached out and said, you're doing my roof. I'm not even asking anybody else. I love the videos that you do. I went to a lady's house the other day and she said, let me just tell you what you're going to look at when you get on my roof. You're going to look at the little pipe collars and you're going to see if I have neoprene or if they're made out of metal. And the neoprene ones have a tendency to fail in the sun. And I just thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I put TikTok videos out, clips of my podcast that have nothing to do with roofing or anything like that. And you can see who's watching them. And it's a lot of homeowners. It's a lot of prospects. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there's something here. And I've kind of gotten myself into the groove of doing this over about the last 5 years. And it all started for me when I moved to San Antonio. We bought this roofing company, Rio Blanco Roofing, and it was out of business. And Stafford, I'd never been to San Antonio before in my entire life. I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. It's just me and a dead company. And what's the best way that you can resurrect a dead brand is to make it known. Like you say, money loves attention and you've got to be best known. Best known beats best is the little saying that I like to use. So I just started hitting Facebook and I started friend requesting everybody in San Antonio that would be my friend. And
That's
my
awesome.
very first client that I ever met was a guy in Bernie, Texas. And he calls me up and he says, hey, man, I saw that picture, and it was just a picture. I wasn't even doing videos at that time. I went to my roofing crew's birthday party, and I just took a picture with my guy on my roofing crew and his mom, and she made me a plate for dinner. And I said, I'm just so thankful that I get to work with these guys and that they treat me like I'm a part of their family. And that really started the whole spiral, the snowball effect for me. And I realized, okay, cool. I've been doing the podcast. This is episode 204. I'm coming up on 4 years of doing it. And it amazes me some of the people that reach out and say, hey, I saw your podcast. And I don't know how many people watch it. I hope I get millions of views too, but I don't think I do. I think my checks would be a little bit bigger if I had, but it's incredible. And like you say, not everybody's willing to do it. So if you're willing to put yourself out there, you can develop your own little groove. You can get your own little audience, and then it just continues to grow. And next thing you know, I've got guys like you on my show because of, Jay giving a recommendation saying, hey, this guy's podcast is fun. He's a little bit quirky and a little goofy. And I think you guys would be a great fit. So no underestimating the power of social media for sure.
Yeah, I tell you, the thing about social, and this is what I tell people that ask me, how do I utilize my business? People will see through you really quick if you're not authentic. And the story you just told me about being at your team, one of your team members' house, and them treating you like family, that was authentic. And dude, you come across authentic. But I warn people all the time, don't do this if you're going to try to be fake, because people will see through that quick. And in this really crazy, weird way, what we're doing is we're going back to the way our grandparents did business. Our grandparents did business with people they knew that were from their community, that they liked and they trusted. Yep. Somewhere in the TV era, it all got corporate and conglomerate. And now it's kind of through social. It's going back to that a little bit. People want to know where their food comes from. People want to know who's on their roof. People want to know who's cooking the hamburger. Because it's not, one of the struggles I've had a little bit is I want to put my kitchen staff on camera, and they're not really willing. But when I had my steakhouse, the biggest change we made that sent customer complaints down was every Wednesday night, I put my chef on live. And we just talk about stuff on live on Facebook. That's when live Facebook first came out. And there's this funny thing, when you know who's actually up there on your roof, or who's making your steak, it tastes better. You feel better about the work that they did. You're going to have a lot less complaints. Because one of the first bad reviews I ever got, the guy said the bozos on the grill was in whatever that, I don't even remember what website it was he put that on. But I thought, he doesn't even know who they are. That's why I called them bozos. It wasn't really an insult. He just didn't have, I was like, I need to make sure people know who they're doing business with. And that's what my father-in-law gave me that advice too. He said, name your business after yourself and people to know who they're doing business with. So that's a lot of my friends that do this. They have fake names on their social. Mine is my name. I don't hide from anything that I put out. My name is on all of my social. In fact, if you want to follow me, it's just Stafford Shurden. Anywhere, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all that. It's just Stafford Shurden. I'm not trying to hide from anybody. And I think you'd agree with that, man. It's like we have to be proud of what we do. We have to put out work that we're going to be proud of. If you're going to get out there and do what me and you are doing with social, you got to be proud of the product that you're making. Because if you're not doing a good job, people are going to crucify you when you put your stuff out.
Oh my gosh, I'm in roofing, and I'll tell you what, that's one of the hardest things to be a part of, because there's so many haters in roofing. And yes. I tell my guy, I've got a specialist, and we do these custom chimneys, flashings. He makes this metal stuff. He bends it all custom on site. And I mean, we do some elaborate projects. And I put a picture up one time, and everybody just said, man, that's absolutely beautiful. I tell my guy, Francisco, I say, man, you're the only guy I know that doesn't get any hate. And it's because I take the time to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. This is the story behind this project. Let me show you how Francisco puts this together. And there is great pride in it. And my rule with the roofing company is I will not do a job if I can't post it on social media and say my company did this with pride. And I've turned away large scale projects. I've turned down apartment complexes that could have paid me thousands of dollars, because that rule, I think, is most important. And anytime you take the dollar over the authenticity, it shows as fake. And that's when you start getting really crucified by the people, because they say, man, that job sucks. What are you talking about? You're showing pride about that. You're a hack. And I won't accept that. At this point in my career, I've been doing this 27 years. I don't need recognition I like getting the good recognition, and I like doing it for my guys. You know, my young guy, Francisco, he's 50 some years old. He is a very humble man. He will never let me put him on camera. Eventually he will, because I'm going to continue working on him and getting his confidence up. But I always tell him, you know, people all over the country that do this job that are notorious haters, and they look for any reason to bash someone else's work. They're not doing it with yours. They're showing that, you know, this guy really takes pride in his work. He really cares. He's a specialist. He's spent 35 years perfecting his craft, and it helps me so much. And I think that is something that not everybody can do, because a lot of people do it for the clout. They do it for the money. They do it because they want to get famous on social media or whatever. And I've always said with this podcast, I don't care if anybody else watches it. I get to have fun talking to great people all over the world. I've had some very diverse backgrounds that have nothing to do with roofs, and it seems to be working for me. You know, I've got a good sponsor. I've got a few more people that have reached out, and I'm like you. I want to maintain this authenticity. I want it to be me sitting on a chair in my living room with a TV that's 20 years old, that's got a picture of my logo on it. And I got a bunch of ball caps, you know, people that are my friends in the industry send me their hats. I've got, you know, some one of a kind stuff, and I want to be me. And it takes a lot to get to that point in life where you think, you know what, I could put this out and people could say, man, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This guy's a complete idiot, but I don't care anymore. And I think once you get to the point where you don't care, the real you shows more. And like you said, it was a great comparison. It's almost like we've gone back in time, but with technology. And
no, 100%
agreements and stuff like that, like the grandparents did way back in the day, has come full circle. And these are the guys, the Jay Bradleys of the world, who makes a phone video with his cell phone and then posts it out there.
It's real.
Guys like you, guys like myself, we're actually doing pretty well because we're just being who we are.
100%. It's a fun world we're living in. And I will tell you this, as you were talking, I thought about, you said you don't get any bad comments. So I was justice court judge for 14 years, and I put a lot of people in jail, not prison. Justice court judges didn't have that. You know, there's a difference between prison and jail.
Yep.
And
I'm a roofer. I know the difference.
Every now and then. Yeah, there's a difference. And I get comments pretty regular that's from somebody with no followers, with no friends online. And I'm like, oh, that's somebody that I have probably made mad in court one way or the other. Because usually when you have court, you make somebody mad.
Of course.
Because you could tell, I was like, okay, these comments are real personal, and I don't know who has this page. Because I first said I would never delete a comment. And there's this one guy that would just say, just weird, just strange. Like he would make complaints about stuff I was doing that made no sense whatsoever. I'm like, and then finally it dawned on me, I'm like, this is 100% somebody I put in jail. I mean, you could just tell there was a personal grudge against me personally. And in truth, I'm a human being. I probably made some mistakes in that 14 years, you know, but I was like, yeah, that's the only guy that I've blocked. Other than that, if somebody says something, I don't know if you ever run anything like this, but I'll post something that's just like a gas station review. And then the next thing you know, there's a political conversation in the comments. And then somebody says something racial or just really beyond the pale, or somebody says something violent. I do block those people, but I've never blocked anybody that said anything bad about me. I'm just like, whatever, dude. I'll tell you this too. One more thing. When I did that NFA burger review, for your listeners, going to have to go watch that. I was having a really rough hair day, and somebody said he looked like Patty the Batty. And I went to looking at it, I was like, oh my God, when Patty the Batty is 51 like me, this is exactly what he's going to look like.
And he may be doing gas station food reviews at that point.
What?
He may be doing gas station reviews at that point. Patty the Batty, who knows?
They were like, Patty the Batty's looking rough. And I just was like, hey, man, I got my butt whooped a lot. You know, it's been a rough year. So I would just lean into it because it's pretty funny. It actually is pretty funny. But I was like, oh, my God, I kind of do look like him. That blonde hair all bowl cut around, you know.
I love it. And that's awesome. I didn't even think about that. But now that you say it, it's like, yeah, I can see that resemblance. And that's
I would
like you say,
never
something
thought
you
it
got to
before.
lean into. You got to be able to laugh and say, hey, nobody's perfect in this world. I'm who I am and I love who I am. And I'm a good human being. And I do things for people that show some appreciation. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. I was going to tell you before we started this episode, I try to keep these to an hour. And we're already in an hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to start winding this one down. But there is a hugely large open invitation for you to come back anytime you want.
I'll tell you what, I'll make
Rio. And I want to ask you this before we start checking out. You've already kind of mentioned your social media handles, you know, Stafford Shurden. That's pretty simple. If anybody that's watching this wants to check out your content, they want to give you a recommendation of a gas station to review, what is the best way for our audience to be able to do such things?
Yeah, if follow me on social media and just comment. When you see something you like, just comment in there, or, you know, direct message me over Facebook or whatever. And that's probably the easiest way to get me somewhere. I don't know where most of your listeners are, but
all over the world.
I'm honing in on Texas because I've really been wanting to come back. I mean, like that was March of 21 the last time I was there, so it's been a minute. And I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal because, no joke, I'm hoping to have a book come out end of the year, first of next year. I hope it's before Christmas this year. I'm not done with it, so this is my first book. I don't really know how all that works. It depends on whether I self-publish or not. But when the book comes out, I definitely want to come back and talk about the book because I'm about 3/4 of the way through with it. It's a lot about growing up in the Mississippi Delta. I'm very proud. Like, I've cried a few times. I'm not an emotional person. I've cried a few times writing it. And, I've had an easy life in a lot of ways, dude. But, at the same time, I've been through some hardships, as we all have. And I think people will enjoy it. And it tells the story of how I got from, adopted, nobody wanted me. So I was adopted, to doing these gas station reviews. And like this kind of food and culture has always been a part of my life. And I've really grown to love food and love this. My podcast is called Breaking Bread because it's something biblical about sitting down and having a meal together.
Absolutely.
And yeah, man. And it's just like barriers come down. And there's something magical about food. Every culture understands it. Every culture has things that are special in food to them. And I'd love to come back and talk with you about that when the book comes out. And I got to get you on my show.
Deal.
The only caveat here on you being on my show is we have to do it face to face because we have to have lunch together. So
that was going to be my next thing. Next time you're in Texas, you let me know where you're going to be eating, and I'm going to make my way there so we can have a meal together and we can do a co-review of whatever gas station we're eating at that day. So that is a deal, my friend. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. Jay Bradley was spot on when he said, this is going to be a great episode. You're going to absolutely love this guy. And, we've known each other for about an hour and 20 minutes. We're an hour and 17 minutes into the podcast.
So everybody knows, we've never spoken before the podcast started. I mean, like the 5 minutes when you were setting it up, other than over social media.
Yeah, and that's how I like to do it. And sometimes they work out wonderfully. Sometimes they're awkward. This has been every bit as fun as I thought it was going to be. And like I said, I knew coming in this was going to be cool. I did more research for this episode, which was probably about 20 minutes worth, than I've done for any of the first 204 episodes. So I appreciate you, Stafford, taking the time to be here. And the open invitation is there. I can't wait to have you back so we can talk about the book. Maybe we'll do a deal with Jay Bradley and yourself and me, and we can do a 3-person podcast sometime down the road as well. One thing I do need to mention. Yeah, it'll be fun. Trust me. One thing I need to do before we sign off today. This is my obligatory shout out to my sponsor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my sponsor. It's Roofer, ROOFR.com. And Roofer is the greatest software program in the roofing industry. They've been my sponsor now. This is our 3rd year. I signed the contract just a couple weeks ago for the 3rd year of title sponsorship for Keepin It Rio. This is a program that was made by actual roofers for roofers. And what it does is basically takes you from the very first contact with a client, a homeowner, a prospect. You can get an estimate on your roof inside of 2 minutes. And then we can go through the entire process together, from the proposals to the work orders, to the material orders, to the project itself, all the way to the final payment and the 5-star review that everybody gives us at the end, because we provide that with them. It's all inclusive in Roofer, and those guys are absolutely amazing. We've got the International Roofing Expo coming up here in San Antonio, and I think that it'll probably actually be over by the time this episode airs. This is about 3 weeks out right now. I think we'll just be wrapping up. I was going to do my podcast live at the biggest roofing event in the world. Unfortunately, I waited a little too long to ask, and we weren't able to make it happen this year. But I love everybody at Roofer. They give me some of the coolest shirts and hats. I tell everybody that I can possibly tell, if you ever start a roofing company, start with Roofer. So thank you to you guys. Thank you to the fans. I think that sounds corny whenever I say it, but you know, my audience is pretty cool, and I love them. I've got people all over the world that tune in. I've done shows in multiple countries. So everybody that pays attention to this, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that cool stuff. I'd like to get 1 million views a month on my YouTube channel too. I've got a long way to go to get there, but this is a labor of love, and I really appreciate it. And before we sign off, the last thing I always end every episode with is the corniest, cheesiest tagline in the history of anything. And it quite simply goes, until next time, keep on keeping it real. We'll see you guys next week. Stafford, thanks for your time. I appreciate you, my friend. And
thank you, Chuck.
We'll see you guys next